Hello and welcome to this World of Tanks map guide. My name is Maxwell and today we're going to be taking a look at the map Murovanka and the routes and tactics you can use. As always, before we get started, let's take a quick look at a map of Murovanka. So as you can see, the two predominant routes that the scouts take are down the far right and left hand flanks, ignoring largely the middle of the map. As you can see, that is mainly the territory for medium and other light tanks that have a death wish. On the right hand flank, you can see that heavy, medium and tank destroyers all camp along that tree line, and the artillery's position is relatively close to the base, being further back there set amongst trees and buildings. On the left hand flank, you can see that tank destroyers heavily camp the set of bushes that are on that slight rise, the ridge there. The artillery and other tank destroyers like to camp close to the base there in those sets of bushes, trees and buildings. As you can see, heavy tanks from both sides like to clash along that little valley floor on the far left hand side, quite near the north of the map. So let's get into the guide proper. So the first route we're going to look at when spawning at base number 1 is going to be all the way down your left hand flank through these trees here. Now this is the route that I like to take more often than not, although on this map it's a lot more even. There isn't one route over another that I prefer to take. It really depends on the composition of your team. So if your team has quite a few medium tanks and fast tanks that like to assault down a flank, then this is the best route to take. If your team has more heavy tanks and tank destroyers, then you're going to want to take the second route that we show. So where you want to get to is just this little copse of trees here, and take up a good position stealthed in a bush, probably this one here, although this would leave you quite exposed to the right hand side there, where enemy tanks will definitely be arriving. So normally the best thing to do is just stay so the hill is on your right hand side so that you are well protected, and use maybe this bush further back as your stealth. So what you're going to be wanting to keep an eye on is just this area here, because medium and light tanks will like to come along this riverbank here and get into these trees themselves for a staging area to assault your tree line. So you just want to hang here until you spot who's coming along this area. Once they start coming along, if you're able to, maybe have a couple of shots yourself and try and take them out. If they are superior in firepower and armour to you, then you want to just fall back. And the best place to fall back to is, it all depends on your support. If you've got plenty of support waiting over there, then you want to just fall back to this position here. And that means that the enemy has to come all the way around the hill there in order to get a good shot at you, meaning that your stationary defending tanks will be able to pick them off also. Now if you don't have good support, then you're going to have to fall back all the way to the trees. The problem with that is there's normally a camping tank right there and sometimes there that will be able to get a clear shot at you as you are falling back. Now if you do have to fall back all the way to the trees, I would suggest maybe switching flanks and either heading into the central village there, which is rather dangerous but can offer some good spotting opportunities, or relocating all the way to the right hand flank, which we're going to cover next. So once this area has been cleared and that you're confident that there's no more campers lurking around, then what you want to do is just get to the enemy's base as quickly as possible. You want to stay down this little dip here, as this will offer you cover from direct fire. And then once you reach this area here, hopefully you'll have stayed invisible to the campers right up until this spot here, giving you the best chance to get towards the enemy's base. Now this bit here is just a dash across open ground, so you just need to either pray that you don't get spotted and shot, or use some of that fantastic weaving tactic that you will have picked up along the way. And the idea here is to hunt down the enemy's artillery and tank destroyers. Artillery you'll normally find camped in this spot here behind these two buildings, as they offer fantastic cover, or you'll find them in all of these bushes here. Now, if they are in these bushes here, you will normally find that there will be a tank destroyer camped here, so just be aware that you could have someone taking shots at you from here. If they haven't spotted you coming, then enjoy the free shots at them as they try and slowly turn around and take you out. So once you've managed to take them out, you can either come up the flank here and do some spotting if there's any tanks remaining there, or simply go for a base capture. The second route we're going to cover when spawning at base number 1 is going to be along your left hand. Is it left? No, your right hand flank. Left hand flank by the map. So the idea is to get into a good spotting position before the enemy can lay eyes on where you have gone. Now you may see medium tanks taking this position a lot, but light tanks have the speed and the acceleration and the top speed to be able to reach this position well ahead of any medium tank, so this is really the best spot for you. Now the reason you see medium tanks taking this spot is because they are able to get a couple of free shots off at the enemy before they get noticed. But the problem with that is then once they do get noticed, they generally get blown up and you have lost your spotter. So from this position you want to initially just take up residence in this bush here, offering you some good stealth, and it will give you eyes on this little valley here. If you don't get good eyes on it, then you can always just rise right over the top there and you'll be able to spot the enemy coming all the way up here. Now as soon as you get spotted yourself, just fall back. The idea here is just to stay alive as long as possible. Remember never to pop over the rise at the same spot twice, because the enemy will invariably be aiming in that direction. So you want to just come forward, spot the enemy and then fall back. Now don't keep popping over all of the time, only pop over once the enemy has re-stealthed, so it takes a good few seconds. So it's just slow and steady, pop over the ridge at a different spot every time and stay alive for as long as possible. If you feel like your gun has the power, then you can always have a couple of shots at whoever's advancing up this direction. Remember that your heavy and medium tanks, your heavy and tank destroyers will be camped around that area there and this area here, so you should be well supported. Another position you can take if you don't like the aggressive area there is on this ridge here. Now the reason we don't just camp in some of these bushes is because you won't get any better eyes on the enemy than your heavy tanks do, and you will be in a very exposed position where you will be able to get taken out with very little cover. So the other position is just this one here in these bushes. Now these offer good stealth from the front and the sides thanks to this abundancy of these bushes here, and will offer you a good view of this area here, which is where the enemy likes to hang out. Now just be aware that if somebody does get to this area here, the bottom of this little hill, you will be more than likely spotted regardless of how good your stealth is, because of how close you are to the enemy. The benefit of this spot is it also gives you eyes on the top of that ridge there, where some enemy tank destroyers and heavy tanks like to camp along that ridge and rain fire down into your forest and into the village there. So once you manage to clear out these guys here, you want to just advance from the top of your ridge onto the top of this ridge. Just remember to always use the terrain as natural cover, like this little dip here. And from here you just want to spot any lingering tanks that are in this little valley bit here. Now normally you'll be able to get a shot at their top armour from up here, and if they try and come after you, you can always just fall back there, as a heavy tank takes forever to come up a small slope like that. But by this point your heavy tanks and tank destroyers should be advancing down that area, giving them something a lot worse to worry about. So you're coming down here just to spot any tank destroyers that are still camping along this tree line here. If there's nobody there, then you want to just cut right into behind this building into these bushes to try and root out the enemy's artillery. Just remember, like I said before, there will more than likely be a tank destroyer camped in these bushes waiting to take you out, so just be aware of that. Find the enemy's artillery, either take them out yourself or wait for your artillery to take them out, and then either go for a base capture or try and hunt out the enemy's remaining tanks. The first route we're going to cover when spawning at base number 2 is going to be along your right hand flank, and it's going to be trying to do some spotting in the enemy's camping areas. So what you want to do is just take a right from your spawn and head to the little hill with the copse of trees that we covered in the first section of this guide. Now with your speed, if there's no other light tanks taking this route, fingers crossed you should be able to reach there first. If you do get beaten to the punch and get beaten to this area, then don't be afraid just to fall back and relocate to a different area of the map. So this is the ideal position that you want to take, and it is just hiding behind this bush here. It should offer you good stealth from the front, and as long as you don't fire your gun, anybody camping just over there should not be able to spot you. So what you want to do is just keep eyes on these trees here, and every time the enemy either moves or lets off a shot, you should be able to light them up. If you're feeling a little more daring, you can always take a more advanced position, which would probably be this one here. Now the reason I say a little more daring is because obviously it brings you closer to the trees, so more chance of being spotted, and secondly you don't have the protection of the hills, so if you do get spotted it takes you a little bit longer to get into protected cover. You can always turn your tank that way to expose your side armour, but it does give you the best acceleration to get away if you do get spotted yourself. And being in this position as opposed to that one over there, you get eyes right on the front of the tree line, so any campers shooting from anywhere you should be able to spot there. Now once this area's been cleared, or you feel like being a bit more aggressive, then you want to just come and advance up through the trees. The one thing you need to remember here is you can't stop, because once you stop, yes you will stealth, but the enemy will know exactly where you've stealthed and be able to pick you off relatively easily without you being able to spot them. So you want to just stick close to the red line and some of these bushes here and head up as quickly as possible, and you're aiming for this fence here and these buildings. This is the most likely spot for the enemy's artillery, and once you are in here you can use the buildings as cover from direct enemy fire. The fence won't provide any cover whatsoever, so don't rely on it. So once you're in here, like I said, you can use the buildings as cover from enemy direct fire, and if you don't spot the artillery here, then they will be in these bushes here. There's only 3 likely camping spots for enemy artillery when spawning at this base, and that is this bush line here, those buildings there, or just in the top of the tree line there or there, which we have already driven through. So once you've managed to take out the enemy's artillery and you are still alive, if there are plenty of tank destroyers and other tanks camped in the tree line, then I wouldn't recommend going for a base capture just yet. What you want to do is just hang around inside this little courtyard here, using the buildings as cover, and just give the enemy tanks the run around while your larger tanks can advance unopposed along the flank, as the defenders are too busy trying to kill you rather than protecting their flank. So the second route we're going to cover when spawning at base number 2 is going to be along the left hand flank. Now, the base number 2 doesn't have a good camping spot, a good hidden spot within the hills on the left side there, so the position you have to take along this flank is a lot more aggressive. Just be aware that if you do have good support and you have good heavy tanks and medium tanks that are advancing along with you, then you should be fine. So the position you want to take is just come along the flat land there and then crest this hill here, aiming for this building. Now don't take cover behind that building, as you'll be a fairly easy target. Where you want to get to is this little flat bit here, as this ridge here will provide good protection from direct fire from that side there. And what you want to do is just crest the edge of the hill there quickly and then pop yourself back as quickly as possible, and you are just spotting which enemy heavy tanks are camped in this area. Hopefully your artillery should be able to get some good shots at them before they get into a protected position, and again just pop round there and have another look. And like I said, this little ridge here will provide good cover from direct fire from over that direction, and if you're feeling particularly lucky you can have a quick shot at anybody advancing through that area there. Now if you see somebody start trying to crest the hill to take you out, then what you want to do is just fall back along this line here. Again, the little dips in the terrain will provide good cover from direct fire, and you want to just spin around and take cover behind these bushes. And if they do keep cresting the hill, don't forget to have a couple of little shots at them, because they will be exposing their bottom armour, which you should be able to cut through no matter which gun you have equipped. So once you've done that, if heavy tanks are still cresting that hill to try and get at you, then just fall back a little bit further and use this hill here as natural cover from the enemy fire, and you can always pop yourself out there and have another quick spot and pop yourself back. The only thing you have to be aware of is when you're in this position, you'll be a fairly easy target from over that way, and the enemy's artillery, if you don't keep moving, the enemy's artillery will be able to get an easy shot at you. If you need to fall back even further, don't be afraid to do so, as we can make up the ground later once your heavy tanks have pummeled them to death using the intel that you have gathered. So you can always just fall all the way back to this position here. Now once you know or think that that hill is clear again, then just go ahead and advance back up to that area. But what you'll find most of the time is the enemy's tanks won't try and crest the hill to get at you, as heavy tanks take far too long to come up a slope that steep, and they think that with the support you have, they'll probably get taken out trying to do it, and more often than not, they are correct. So once you've cleared this area out here, you want to just come down using these buildings as cover here and get some more spotting done. Don't just advance stupidly along that area there, as you'll most likely get blown up by a stationary tank destroyer, which will be camped in those bushes there, up that area, or in those buildings there. So what you want to do is just advance quickly but steadily, using each of these buildings as cover. You can stop behind any of them in order to take a breather and reassess the situation, but remember that you should always be advancing, so using each of these buildings. Just be aware which ones are destructible and which ones are not. The smaller ones here, destructible; the larger ones, not destructible. So yeah, just be aware that if you take cover behind one of these short shacks here, then after a couple of shots the enemy will be able to get at you. The taller buildings are not destructible, so you will be safe. Now the idea is just to get as close to the trees as possible without getting taken out, and hopefully once you get to an advanced position like this, you should be able to spot an enemy as they fire a shot at you. Now once you're convinced that they are all dealt with, it's just an idea of getting in on the enemy's base and taking out their artillery and lingering tank destroyers as quickly as possible. Now if you know this flank here is clear, if there's nobody up there and nobody in the buildings there, what you want to do is just cut down into the trees here. Just had an accidental shot there. Just cut down into these trees. Remember to weave from side to side to make yourself a harder target for the enemy campers, which will be in these trees. And the idea is just to get yourself through as quickly as possible and uncover as many tanks as you can, so that your artillery and big guns are able to take them out. Thank you for watching this World of Tanks map guide. If you found this video useful or enjoyed it, don't forget to like or favourite it, as that really helps us out. And if you want further World of Tanks updates in the future, don't forget to go ahead and subscribe to this channel. Thank you very much for watching. Goodbye. If you enjoyed this video, why not go and check out one of our friends? They also make quality gaming content, and you can find their channels just by clicking on one of the video annotations on screen. Couldn't be simpler.